be a little louder than that? Firstly, हमारे साथ ABP network में Ideas of India Summit में जुड़ने के लिए thank you very much, Karan Johar.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Better known as K. Joe.
Oh God.
Right? You know, I've also always wanted to know from you, or been curious, do you like being called K. Joe? Like Govinda hated being called Chichi. And there's obviously a media name in the sense that Big B, King Khan, K. Joe. Do you like being called K. Joe?
Not at all.
Okay.
From
we make
no
that
angle. It just got stuck somehow. It was like, it was actually a member of the media. Her name was Namrata Joshi. She did a cover story for Outlook at that time. It was right after the release of Kal Ho Na Ho. And they used to call her Nam Jo. Okay. In the office. She was Namrata Joshi, and I've told the story, and I think she's going to get very annoyed that I'm telling it again. But that's how she just called it the Kejo something, and it just got stuck right after that.
I think it goes with the whole veneer of being the cool Kejo, right? It goes with your personality in a certain way.
Yeah, well, it's stuck. I don't know whether it's deserving or not, but yeah, it's just the way it is.
The reason I'm saying that, Karan, is also the fact that, you have this whole cool veneer, but behind that is a pretty astute businessman, and most people, of course, they realize it given the sheer quantum of the output that your production company comes out with month after month and for years after years. But when you actually, and this is a company that your father founded, when you actually took over, it wasn't such a big company, right?
Well, my father was I'm very proud to say was a very loved man in the film fraternity, and knew everybody, and has been working in the movies since the 1950s. He used to do production, and he was very loved and revered by the fraternity. Unfortunately, besides his very first film as producer, Dostana, there were a series of films that hadn't worked commercially. So while he was known and loved and had made very massive cinematic experiences, they hadn't been successful at the box office. So it was after 1980 when Dostana released. It was in 1998 when I directed Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, when he gave his next success. So he actually had 18 years of failures actually after Dostana. So it wasn't a very easy time. I mean, people really don't think about that today when they think of Dharma Productions, but it was actually, we're rather nascent, because I started actively producing multiple films only post 2008, 2009, with Dostana and Wake Up Sid and films like which we started. So it's about like really 14 years old in the business where we're actively producing content.
I mean, it would be fair to say that even in these 14, 15 years that you've been around as a producer, Dharma Productions gets almost the same billing, at least in the mindscape, in popular culture, as, say, Yash Raj. And Yash Raj has been around for obviously much, much longer, right? My question to you is that because we're talking about names, and I know you don't like being called Kejo because it sounds like Kaju, but Dharma, Dharma is named after, most people won't know this, is named after an individual called Dharma Hinduja.
He was Dharam actually.
Okay.
Mr. S.P. Hinduja's son, Dharam. My father was financed by the prolific Hinduja family when he decided to embark on being a producer. Dharma Productions was formulated at that time when he was funded by the Hinduja family, who were also into film financing at that moment of time. S.P. Hinduja was the oldest member of the Hinduja family, and his son was Dharam Hinduja. I say was because he's not alive anymore. And that's the origin of the name. It comes from him actually, and then I think they tweaked it and called it Dharma. His name was Dharam.
Right, right. And of course, you spoke about how in '98 you made Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. That was your first film as a director. Huge success, but I think it's harder to sustain success. And thereafter, you made K3G with like every big movie star there was at the time, right? I mean, Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan, Hrithik Roshan, all rolled into one particular film. What I'm keen to know, Karan, if you were to make your debut as a director in the year 2022, what kind of a film or what kind of project would you go up with? Because is it the same world anymore?
It may not be, but I'm not making anything different just now. So, I'm making a film called Rocky or Rani Ki Prem Kahani. How much do you think I've really progressed from Kuch Kuch Hota Hai? It's a love story. It has family. It has movie stars. It has Ranveer Singh and Alia Bhatt, and of course, supremely talented senior members of the film fraternity, Jaya ji and Shabana ji and Dharam ji and all in the movie. I think I'm going back to the same world. I did go through phases of I would say evolution, perhaps, as a filmmaker, because at one point I wanted to tell a story of extreme dark infidelity. I wanted to tell a socially relevant film like My Name Is Khan. I've also made a film on complex human relationships with Aidil. But there came a time right during the pandemic, I think, is when I felt like I just needed to make a movie that made me feel like I was 25 again. Right. And when I was 25, the only movie I could think of or make was Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, because it was like an accumulation of all the movies that I'd grown up watching. And it's a homage to Raj Kapoor or Yash Chopra, Suraj Barjatya, like all my influences growing up watching movies. And I think that's what I'm doing with Rocky or Rani. I'm just going back because I think we are all trying very hard to break the mold, to tear the envelope, cross cinematic boundaries. We're trying as filmmakers, as producers, as content creators. But then we also have forgotten that there was an innocence and a purity to what we're known as. The quintessential Bollywood film,
movie, right.
Which has its heart on its sleeve, which has its songs on your lip, which has a dance for no reason, which has theatrics and drama that possibly don't seem real. But I was like, let's do it again.
Right. Well, the reason I'm also asking you this question is because, let's say, when you made K3G back in 2001, if someone told you that a Batman is releasing, okay, or Jungle Book is releasing, or Spider-Man is releasing, you wouldn't have cared about it, right? It could come in a theater and go for you care, because there is this whole Bollywood film and there is a Bollywood audience. But now, say in 2021, the biggest film in India was Spider-Man. There's this Hollywood that you have to contend with also.
Absolutely. If we purely speak Hindi film industry, we're not competing, but I want to say, because competing would be giving it a negative connotation. Yeah. I think we're being inspired every week by not just Hollywood. Within the parameters of our great nation, we have films coming from the South film fraternity that are absolutely killing the bomb. Look at the numbers of RRR as we speak.
So 20 crore on day one.
Rajamouli is clearly the biggest Indian filmmaker today. And there is no one who can take that mantle away from him. He's enormous. He's gigantic, just like his brand is as are his movies. Not just Batman or Spider-Man or now Avatar that will come in December. These are all massive cinematic spectacles. But when we used to first call our cinema crossover cinema, invariably I have to say, when you really cross, it's all over. Because, it's like it's not really doing very much for you here. You're just crossing over. Right. But the real true crossover is within the boundaries of our country, when the film cinemas from not only Telugu, but Tamil, Malayalam cinema, Kannada cinema, the digital explosion has exposed all this great content to viewers across the nation. Look at these numbers. They're massive. And Hindi, Pushpa has just released to massive success. Allu Arjun is a household name today. Everyone is dancing to those songs. They're dancing to the Telugu songs. They're dancing like in the north to the tunes from the south. That is immensely amazing, and that is what I call true crossover. So when you say the Hindi film industry is competing, I say we're being inspired on a weekly basis by the film industry from the South, by what is happening in Hollywood, by what's happening digitally. Everyone is kind of coming all together. So we've got to completely watch what we do at every step, because we were at one point, Bollywood is and was globally known, as this brand. But the origin of that is the Hindi film industry, but it's no longer that. And Rajamouli, in his own words, has said that we should call it the Indian film industry now, because it's all about that. We should stop addressing it as Bollywood, because that is that is a term of the past now. We have to say Indian, because if a Malayalam film is being loved the way it is, if a Telugu film is doing these theatrical numbers, if a Tamil film is being remade as we speak, if a Kannada film which is releasing now, KGF, which is going to open huge, What are we talking about? We're talking about the Indian movies, the Indian film industry. It's no longer Hindi or Bollywood or Tollywood or Collywood or all these terms we are given.
Right.
We have to proudly walk the talk as Indian cinema.
Well, the CEO of your company, Apurva, he says that actually there aren't that many filmmakers in Bombay blessed with that level of finesse to reach out to such massive audiences as we've learned from the South. Would you agree with him?
You know, the thing is, yes, I find the level, what happens is, and I'm saying this, I'm putting myself in the same bracket when I say this. All of us in Hindi cinema, I feel sometimes fall prey to what I call herd mentality. Is like, I feel sometimes we shift the focus from the eye on the ball and go to what's happening around us. We tend to do that all the time. I've done it myself. If you see biopics doing well, suddenly we're making biopics. If you suddenly see cinematic spectacles like when Bahubali worked, suddenly everybody went big event. You know, everybody went big event films. Suddenly if you see like small town movies doing well, you know, with social messaging, everybody's making that. Let me tell you, I've done the same.
Right.
I follow the same. I know different.
You get Kalan, come
yeah,
on.
So,
Karan,
I mean, yeah, well, yeah, okay, we won't get into that.
on that.
Yeah, we won't get into that. But I'm just saying that I've followed I've not created many paths. I've followed trends. Right. That's what I think happens in Hindi cinema. We sometimes lose the courage of our convictions. And so filmmakers also get carried away with this wavering energy. Whereas if you meet anyone from the South, they know what they're doing and they follow that path. They're not looking at what we are doing or what Hollywood is doing. They're doing their thing. Their syntax has remained the same. Of course, they've upped the technology and enveloped it better than us. And we have a lot to catch up with. But I feel sometimes we lose the courage of our convictions. And the filmmakers that have really kind of held on to their mantle. You know, there are certain filmmakers, you could judge them in whatever way you want. But when you look at a maverick filmmaker like Sanjay Bansali, he does what he wants to do. He does it the way he wants to do it. Rohit Shetty, he does what he wants to do in the way he wants to do it. He's not listening to intellectuals, critics, Twitter, Instagram. He's doing his thing, and that's why he's a leading filmmaker of Hindi cinema. I'm telling you, it's my own failing sometimes. While I have a bona fide studio and I have an enterprise and I'm working towards creating much more, I'm telling you sometimes I get carried away myself. So when Apurva talks about the fact that there are less filmmakers in Hindi cinema, he's not wrong. It's because we are to blame ourselves.
Well, you know, I'm sure you've seen this in a very positive light, and it goes with the theme of this summit, which is the idea of India. And very few things unite this country in a way that cinema now does.
Yes.
You know, it's united the South to the North. Sports has always done it, of course. But I'm going to look at the other side of it, Karan, and the fact also is that some of the biggest producers in the city, right, over the past 2 or 3 years, 2 years for sure, post-pandemic as it were, they really turned into, while these guys were making these big films and they continue to, they really turned, including you, turned into vendors for OTT platforms. That's the end of Bollywood, right? I mean, now you're making stuff for Netflix or Amazon. You're a client. What happened to that big freaking Bollywood, yeah?
No, but that's still happening. We're still making theatrical films.
Yeah.
Where we kind of...
I mean, you make a Shershah and you put it on Amazon. You make a Garaiya with a Deepika and you put it again on Amazon. I mean, clearly you're losing sight of this whole theatrical model, which is like 60% of the revenue, right?
Actually, not at all. Those decisions were made because of the pandemic. Because there was a global pandemic and we didn't have theaters at full capacity. And there was a lot of investment in those movies. At the time Shershah released, which was August, we were in the thick of the pandemic. And, you know, we would have had to keep that film waiting for nearly a year. There are things like cost of capital. There are expenses. Each film has a budget and restraints. You go to a massive platform, leverage, and today Shershah is better off for it because it was seen by massive numbers. It was loved by a massive number of people. It's done phenomenally for the filmmaker, for the actor, for the lead actors, and the film in general. Garaiya also was made on a massive budget, though it was a completely unusual theme, and we knew it would meet with a lot of polarized opinions. It just seemed like the better fit to go with an OTT platform. But it's not happening anymore with films that we've already made for theaters. They're all releasing in cinemas. I have a massive film releasing in September called called Brahmastra. I have a pan-India film called Liger, which comes out in August. These are all cinematic experiences. I have a film called Jug Jug Jio that comes out in June. These are all designed for theatres, and now the climate is back, theatres are back, audiences are back, full occupancy is back. We're going to be back. But there is some content, Mayank, that should go straight to a digital platform, not because we are being vendors, but we are being creators that are versatile. Where we have a new vertical, you have to envelop it. I don't have the bandwidth to start my own platform. I'm saying it out honestly. I'm not funded by any global enterprise. I'm not a public listed company. I can't go out there and create a platform, and I can't do it. So I'm very happy being a storyteller, being a content creator, and I'm happy there are the big boys and girls at Netflix and Amazon and Hotstar and Z5 and Old Balaji and all these platforms. Which is great because it gives us a platform for us to exhibit enormous number of content. In the last 1 year, since Gunjan Saxena released in 2020, we put out about 7 to 8 pieces of content, be it digital shows, non-fiction shows, films. Like we put out where people were struggling to put anything out, we've actually put out that much work from Dharma and Dharmatic. And we're proud of that. We're proud of the fact that we've been able to leverage these massive platforms. And now that cinemas are back, so are we.
So if things were normal, would you have, say, released a Geraya in the theaters? Or would you have felt cagey about it in the sense how people will
I'll be honest with you, I would have released Shesha if things were normal in the cinemas for sure, because it was that spectacle for a large screen. It was made to be a theatrical experience. That is something that I felt. But Geraya is, by its ethos, by its texture, by its syntax, by its style of storytelling, and the fact that it swishes genres, and the way it was actually a definite film for an OTT platform, because I feel it would have found its best home at a home like that, and which it did. I was totally for that. Even when I watched the dailies, Shakun, Deepika, we were all on board with that decision.
I mean, you're the only filmmaker I know in all these years who actually took that film, put together a bunch of film critics, and asked them to sort of talk about it once the film's released. And I was wondering while I was sitting there, what would you even learn from an experience like this? Because the film is done. There's nothing else to fix. What did you learn from the experience, Karan?
Look, it was a strategic decision, man.
Okay.
It was not for me to learn. It was for me to exhibit.
Okay.
I'm being very honest.
Right.
Geraya had so much discussion around it. There was so much buzz. People who loved it, people who hated it, people who didn't agree with it, people who absolutely agreed with it. It was a modern take of modern relationships, infidelity, dark areas of the human mind. I felt like it was very polarizing in its reviews. We had a lot of very esteemed, prolific critics who had absolutely loved it, and those that had absolutely not. I told Amazon, and they were really happy to be on board, that we should take a chance. Get 10 critics in one discussion. 5 who loved it, 5 who didn't. And let's talk about it. Let's be open. Why are we afraid of criticism? We should envelop it. How do we get better? And the fact that we do this will actually just create more energy around the film. We'll actually create more buzz, because then people will want to see which side they're on when they see a discussion like this, which is what happened. It really helped us, because we put it out there and we put out the polarization. And you should actually not be shy. I keep feeling, why are we worried about people who don't like something? They have a point of view, you must respect it. I know that I read everyone's perspective, and if that means putting it out there, why not? I would encourage us to do that with every film, if everybody was on board.
I don't think we'll find too many of those in this city for sure. But Karan, the way you're describing where we are in 2022 in terms of what kind of content becomes theatrical, what kind of content goes straight into an OTT platform, is this roughly where we were, say, in the early 2000s, where there was such a thing as the Masi film, the single screen film, and the other was the multiplex film? All of them eventually merge into the same film, right? Multiplex audience is the same as a single screen audience eventually. But is that where we are, you think? That there is such a thing as mass?
Look, we give these terms. If you just get academic of your content and genre, you know that these are the films, X amount of films that have the prerequisites that will work massively. And you have to go back to the drawing board about what you spent on it. If you spent a massive number for a film that you feel will be a certain number that doesn't give you a recovery because of its genre or its content or the way the filmmaker has told the story, you should opt for a safer option. But if you feel like you have what it takes, if you have the prerequisites of the elements that you know that multiplexes, single screens across the country and across states will envelop and love, there's no two ways about it that those should go straight to cinema halls.
What happens then to the star system, Karan, in the sense that even while you do stuff online, you actually work with a Madhuri Dixit or a Deepika Padukone, and of course I'm talking only right now of the female stars because these are the ones I can remember, or for that matter Siddharth Malhotra also, right, which you released online. Now the star system was based on box office, what you command on day one. That's the number of people who want to watch you just because they saw your picture in the poster. That's Salman Khan, the superstar.
But let me tell you honestly, Mayank, it only enhances your stardom. Perhaps we don't have a box office number to give you.
Yeah.
Perhaps I don't have a report card to show for you.
Yeah.
But is Siddharth Malhotra a much bigger star today? Yes, he is. And why is that?
Why is
it's
that?
because that the film has been massively loved on Amazon, massively viewed on Amazon. If Siddharth Malhotra's career has expanded exponentially, it's for everyone to see, the proof lies in the pudding. His market price is much higher, his endorsement circuit is wider, his entire plethora of work has expanded, he's getting better films with better filmmakers, he's a bona fide movie star, he always was, he's a bigger star today. Is Deepika Padukone a bigger star today for Gehraiyaan? Of course she is. Of course she is. So I don't have a report card to show you, but there is an impact that is there. You can sense it, you can feel it. We are today chatting about Gehraiyaan, are we not?
Yes. Of course.
We spoke about Shesha, are we not?
Yeah.
That means somewhere there is an impact. If it was indifference, we won't be talking
No,
about
the point I'm trying to make, Karan, is the fact that let's say a Coolie #1 comes out, right? And Varun Dhawan's in it. And Patal Lok comes out on the same platform, which has Jaideep Alawat, who we know now. Or for that matter, Scam 1992 also comes on the internet, who we know now as, the lead, Pratik Gandhi. Technically speaking, now as an audience, I can click on this and may not like this, and I can click on that because I've already subscribed to this platform, right? Do they all now then become equal?
Because no, they don't.
Why not? Because they're coming from theaters?
Because your social media coverage, the buzz meter, will tell you, and not that someone's tracking a buzz meter, it's your own sense. You take a survey in this room and you'll know about what is really successful and what's just a paper tiger. If something is just on an OTT platform, doesn't make it a success. It could be a bona fide failure as well. There are millions of things that are there on digital platforms that haven't created any noise. You know the ones that have worked and how the actor in it or the star in it is going to benefit. Pratik Gandhi is a household name because Scam 1992 is a huge success.
Right.
You absolutely know it. You know Manoj Bajpayee's stakes are so much higher today than they ever, because Family Man is a huge success. Because now he's a family, he always was one of the finest actors we've had. He's a star. I mean, a Family Man has helped that status, of course. And, more power to these fantastic actors. Jaideep Alawat, Pratik Gandhi, Manoj Bajpayee. Incredible actors that have found a platform where they can exhale their creativity in a massively lead space. And they don't have to kind of do content theatrically that doesn't work for them anymore. Look what it's doing to writers. I think the empowerment of writers, which I've been saying for a long time, has to happen. The directors that were not being able to exhale and tell the stories that they really wanted to.
Yeah, but I'm sticking to stardom, Karan, because the point is, for a lot of people across the world, across India for sure, world of course is a different story because they killed stardom in Hollywood and they just turned everything into a franchise, and it doesn't matter who plays whom, right, in a superhero movie. But you look up to a star, right? And that's where that stardom comes from. You look so small in a big screen. It's like, wow, that must be Shah Rukh Khan. Like, if you meet Shah Rukh Khan, you wonder, yaar, Shah Rukh Khan. But of course, he's not going to be like 5 feet or 15 feet tall in any case, right?
Firstly,
does that change things?
We have to realize we are living in the age of an actor. We are no longer living in the age of
So that's
star.
over. The Manna, the Crowd and Galaxy
I don't think we can make definite statements because superstardom, Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Amir Khan, Hrithik Roshan, Akshay Kumar, Ajay Devgan, massive movie stars have a legacy going on from the 90s. You can't wipe that enormous legacy. But today, if I talk about the actors of this generation, we're going to go into a zone of an actor, the age of an actor, it's no longer going to be the age of a superstar or a star. I don't think it's capable, it's not possible of creating that euphoria that the names I just mentioned have had. It's not possible. It's not possible.
Karan, South is doing it right now, right? We would have never imagined.
I'm talking again, when I say this, I talk about the Hindi film.
Hindi film, yes. We would have never imagined 5 years ago that the biggest film right now in India and in the Hindi market stars NTR Jr. and Ram Charan.
Yes.
You know, hardcore Telugu stars. And let's be honest, and Ajay Devgan, who's actually pretty much a special appearance, an extra if you may, in a film like that. And he's a hardcore Bollywood star. Well, or even Alia for that matter. She's a special appearance on extra if you may.
Well, I feel it's the coming together. Why talk about Ajay Devgan is a massive star, and I think he's done that in homage and respect to a filmmaker like Rajamouli. It's also to give the pan-India. Alia Bhatt has a very tiny part in that film. Everyone did it because they want to respect the genius of Rajamouli. And I think that when you say the South film industry is held on to their movie stardom, yes, because their content has been such. The way they've positioned their movies have been such. The Telugu film industry has made a certain kind of film which is all about its inherent heroism. You know, it's inherent, like it's had this kind of storytelling pivoting around the leading man. You know, there are few, of course, wonderful female actors that have done solo-led films. But we in Hindi cinema have got widely eclectic in terms of our storytelling choices. We haven't held on. I think the way we positioned Bachchan in the 70s, you know, which actually began the entire concept of
the heroism,
the hero, the heroism and all that. We started altering that in the 90s when romance took over, where Shah Rukh Khan became the face of love in cinema. It started from, you know, of course, Salman Khan in 1994 with Hum Aapke Kaun, went on to Shah Rukh in 95, who then became the face of romance in India, where he was the first leading man. There was a hero per se, who was crying in the climax of most movies. He was not fighting, he was crying. He became vulnerable, he became accessible, he became like everyone's favorite, like husband, brother, father, son, like everything. We changed our syntax. Then we went completely in different paths with 2001, where Lagan and Dil Chahta Hai were born. And we went into a totally different zone of storytelling. So we changed our syntax completely. Whereas Telugu cinema, and I specifically say Telugu, because Telugu, its syntax is very different from Tamil or Malayalam or Kannada cinema. They held on to their hero.
Right.
Which is why that cinema is always celebrated in the way it is. We chose a different path.
I mean, Salman took that direction and he would remake a Telugu film
but he was just one superstar doing that.
One guy like
he was doing that because Amir and Shah Rukh were telling different stories. Amir was doing the Tare Zameen Par. He was doing the Rang De Basanti. He was doing the Dangal. He was doing different stories. Shah Rukh Khan was even dabbling in an Ashoka and a Paheli while he was doing the big movie vehicles. They were doing different things. Whereas it was respected Chiranjeevi sir, Rajni sir, or it was going down to Mahesh Babu, Allu Arjun, Ram Charan, you know, all of them, Prabhas, they were doing the syntax of the leading man. The heroism was kept intact in storytelling, narrative and films that were made by directors who knew what they were chasing. We told different stories, we took a different path, we have a different result today.
Right. You know, of course, they also in the process took over Hindi heartland, and that can't be denied. It's showing in numbers too. I must let the viewers know that I've had only one request from Karan's team, is to never ask him a question which is personally directed at someone, especially if the person is not in the audience. But I have to ask you this one thing, Karan, and this is one thing that's also changed in the past 2-3 years, or 2 years for sure. When you look at media in general, social media in particular, even mainstream television news media for that matter, this vilification of Bollywood, like they hate Bollywood, ban Bollywood, boycott this movie. Firstly, and I'm sure you face a lot of these trolls. You probably do this every morning, as you said, like a serpent, directed at you. What did you make of it? What do you make of this particular thing that's been going on past 2 years?
So, emotionally speaking, and I'm actually kind of giving an interview like this in a wide conference after over 2 years. Emotionally speaking, it was a very difficult time for me and my family 2 years ago. It was not easy because we brought to the surface things that should not have been brought to the surface, but we also reacted to that surface. we should have known that we are actually talking about a very tiny percentage of people who just are very actively loud on social media. So you take those things to heart because they pop up much more to you on your timeline. So they are faceless, they're nameless, they're trolling you, they're saying the most insensitive, absolutely degrading and defaming you on public platforms. But we see that. We don't see the love. We suddenly do not see the love that exists in large numbers, larger than the negativity, larger than the trolling, larger than anything that you face in terms of criticism. We choose to see the bad, we react to the bad, we bring ourselves down. I'm like, take a beat, which I've done. I've gone and analyzed it within, and I said, why am I sad about faceless, nameless people who are speaking about me? I shouldn't care about them. I should actually be completely grateful to the love that I get, which is in larger numbers. That's what I've chosen to do, Mayank. It's like the only way to do is to go into Zen mode within, appreciate and be grateful for what comes your way, and whatever's negative, let them be. They have their own karma to deal with.
30 minutes is all it takes. Is in fact, just the warming up of coffee. If you're going to have a conversation with Karan, but that's been our time. Thank you so much, Karan, for doing this. This was a pleasure.
Thank you, Mayank. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayank, indeed, and thank you, Karan, for being here today. Ladies and gentlemen, absolutely nobody knows the most perfect blend of arts and commerce like Karan Johar does. A big round of applause for him right now, and I'd like to invite on stage Navroz Dhondi, founder of Create G's, to present Karan with a very small token of our gratitude. Our sincere thanks to Karan for being here today. Don't be hesitant, clappers, louder.